Eriksson, who announced in January that he had been diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer, was England's first non-British manager and widely regarded as one of European football's greatest ever. So let's get to more on this story with Rob Dorsett, who joins us now live. Rob, really good to see you on such a sad day, though. You and I are both very lucky to have met Sven-Goran Eriksson. Just sum up, he was more than a manager, wasn't he?
He was, and I think if you look at his quite extraordinary record as a football manager, that is almost eclipsed by how much he was liked and loved by fans and media alike, I think, just because of his enigmatic personality. He was charming, he was charismatic, he had time to speak to everybody, he always had a smile on his face, he answered every question that you ever threw at him, however difficult it was, whether it was about his private life or whether it was about football matters. And the way he delivered himself and presented himself in the media, I think made him very, very popular. And that's quite an extraordinary achievement when you think about the level of malevolence that was directed his way when he first took the England job back in the year 2000. I mean, he took the job on Halloween, and the tabloids had called it a horror show. The Daily Mail, I think, reported that England and the FA had sold the national game down the fjords to a nation of skiers and hammer throwers, was the phrase that they'd used. The first non-English manager of the England team, he knew he was going to get an awful lot of stick for it. And yet in the news conference you're looking at there, he was charismatic again and said, look, I think they'll hang me, if I'm English or not, if I don't deliver silverware. He knew the expectations of the England job, and so he took that job with his eyes wide open. And even though he didn't deliver silverware for the golden generation of England players, remember, he delivered 2 quarterfinals. And the way he dealt with the media, I think, it won him an awful lot of supporters and an awful lot of fans, and it won over the sceptical media. It won over a big sceptical part of the England fan base. And so, yeah, he will be remembered as a great football manager, but I think be remembered even more as a great man, a great public figure who always held himself in with real respect to whoever he spoke to in whatever environment he was. And he'll be very, very fondly remembered and sadly missed.
Yeah, he certainly will. And obviously so many people are now tweeting and messaging their condolences to the family, which I believe, Rob, you've got the statement from the family, because obviously it's a very difficult day for them.
It is a very difficult day for them, although, look, Vicky, they expected this to happen. I've been talking to people close to Sven-Goran Eriksson's family for almost a year now, and I knew about his cancer diagnosis before he even made it public. But when he did make the illness public, he did it with typical phlegmatic Sven, I suppose, is the only way you can describe it. He was very respectful. He was very humble. It was very low key. He mentioned it to a Swedish radio station first before that news spread. And he's been battling pancreatic cancer ever since. And yes, the family have asked for some time now to be able to mourn him in peace. And you can understand that. I went out to visit him in the family home out in Sweden. It was in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's a 3.5-4 hour drive from the nearest airport, and he lives on the lakes in this tiny little village. Everybody there knows him. Everybody knows where Sven lives. He hasn't got big gates. He hasn't got big barriers or security guards or anything like that guarding where he lived. He was very open and very close to the local community, and that's how he lived his life. He felt he was a normal man who'd had a very rare opportunity to manage at the highest level. And I think you have to remember that he wasn't a very good player himself. I mean, in one of the interviews I did with him, he said he was an average footballer. And so the fact that he reached the very heights of football management, I think, you know, was a real boon for him and a real sense of pride. And if you look at the record that he's got and the honours that he won in his time, with Degerfors, his first job in the Swedish 3rd division, he won the title with them. He then got the move to Gothenburg, where he won the Swedish Cup twice, the UEFA Cup he won for Gothenburg in 1982. That was an extraordinary achievement. Sweden weren't seen as a powerhouse in European football back then, and yet here was Sven-Goran Eriksson, who helped them to the UEFA Cup. Then at Benfica, he won the title. He won the Super Cup. He was runner-up in the European Cup and the UEFA Cup at Benfica. Got his move to Italy because he always wanted to manage in Serie A. That's where he'd idolized some of the great Italian players of the past and where he wanted to ply his trade. And he got his move to Roma, where he won the Italian Cup. He won the Italian Cup with Sampdoria as well. And then he went to Lazio. And it was at Lazio where I think he shot to fame, and everybody in Europe started talking about Sven-Goran Eriksson. He won the Serie A title in 2000. That was only the second time ever that Lazio in their history had won Serie A. And it was Sven that guided them to it. He won the Coppa Italia. He won the Italian Super Cup twice in 98 and 2000. He won the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup in 1999 with them, the Super Cup for UEFA in 99 as well, and was runners-up of the UEFA Cup a couple of years later as well. So it was that extraordinary level of achievement with Lazio, who were unfancied in Italy back then, that shot him to fame across Europe, and that's what got him the England job. That's when the FA came knocking and gave Sven-Goran Eriksson the England job. And I think the FA back then knew it was going to be a controversial appointment, but they called him one of the best coaches in world football. I think he, from speaking to him in the latter years of his life, will always feel disappointment that he couldn't take England's golden generation to win a major trophy. He knew that was the mission. That was very clearly spelled out to him by the FA. That's why they'd gone for Sven. That's why they'd taken the huge leap of employing a non-English manager, because the FA wanted to deliver silverware, and Sven very much wanted to deliver that for England as well. And the fact that he didn't manage it, I think will be something that he always regretted, although he did take them to 2 quarterfinals of World Cups, and circumstances for England back then were very, very different and very, very difficult. But it's what he achieved on the field as one of the world's best coaches at the time, with the enigmatic, charismatic character that everybody was witnessing off the pitch, which I think brought into everybody's hearts.
Yeah, and Rob, it feels like, as an England fan myself, he brought those moments, didn't he, that you sort of remembered where you were. When he began that 5-1 thrashing of Germany, we'd never witnessed that before. The free kick from David Beckham to get us to the England team to the World Cup. It's those moments that I think Sven was responsible for. And is that how people will remember him, do you think, in terms of England?
I think to a large extent they will. I mean, look, one of my abiding memories of Sven with England will be the moment when he left his job. I mean, you'll remember that he was duped twice in his career, famously. Once at Notts County, when he took the director of football's job at Notts County and was told there was huge money on offer, and the mission was to take the world's oldest football club from League Two all the way to the Premier League. And it turned out that it was a castle built on sand. There was no money behind it. So he was duped then. But in England terms, he was duped by the fake sheikh, a famous sting by the News of the World. In 2005, he was England manager. And the fake sheikh met with him and secretly filmed him saying, yes, he would be prepared to leave England, leave his job as England manager to take over Aston Villa after the World Cup in 2006. The Aston Villa job wasn't available. It was a complete trick. But the News of the World put that story out, and it eventually led to Sven's downfall. And the FA were embarrassed by that and announced that Sven would be leaving his role, with mutual agreement, apparently, after the World Cup in 2006. And you remember what happened in that World Cup in 2006? Wayne Rooney was sent off for kicking out and stamping on Carvalho against Portugal, and the winking Ronaldo knocked England out on penalties. And in the news conference, Sven-Goran Eriksson's final news conference as England manager after that game, he begged the English media not to crucify Wayne Rooney. He said, he is the golden boy of English football. Do not attack him. You need him. And so I think that stuck in my memory, and will stick in an awful lot of people's memories, about just the man he was, even at one of the lowest ebbs in his own personal career, as he knew his time as England manager was coming to an end, as he knew England had been knocked out of the World Cup on penalties in a quarter-final against Portugal. Even with all that happening, his immediate thought was to protect Wayne Rooney and say, look, do not crucify him for what he did, because he is a generational talent and you need him. And so that speaks volumes of the man, I think. and how he will be remembered. Just this incredible humility, this incredible charisma, and this incredible humanity. He just had a way of talking to people of whatever creed, of whatever culture they were. He could speak to and get on with everybody. And he really, really did have a personal care for every player that played underneath him. And I suspect over the day today, we'll hear an awful lot of tributes from England players of that time and players from all over Europe that Sven-Goran Eriksson managed, to say just what a pleasure it was to be a player under his coaching.